All right, so are you ready to take a deep dive with us today?
Always up for a deep dive, especially into something like the IELTS.
Well, that's what we're doing today, talking all about the IELTS exam.
Sounds good to me.
And, well, actually, specifically, we're going to be talking about what the IELTS exam will look like in 2025.
The future of the IELTS.
Exactly, the future.
Yeah.
And to do that, we're going to be taking a close look at this YouTube video by Asad Yaqub.
Okay, yeah, he's a well-known IELTS expert.
Yeah, you know him?
Yeah, he's got some great content, really knows his stuff.
Yeah, and it seems like he's got a pretty good track record when it comes to predicting changes to the IELTS exam.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so when he talks about what the future holds, I think it's worth paying attention.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if you're someone who's planning on taking the exam.
Exactly. This deep dive is all about understanding those changes and what they really mean for your test prep and your overall strategy.
So what's the big headline here? What's changing?
The big shift, and this is something we're seeing with a lot of standardized tests, is a move towards a fully computer-based format.
So no more paper tests.
No more paper tests by 2025.
Wow, that's a pretty big change.
It is a big change, but it's not entirely out of the blue, right? I mean, we've seen this happen with other tests like the TOEFL.
Yeah, it seems like everything's going digital these days.
Right, and it makes sense in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Computer-based tests, they can be graded quicker, the scores can be sent out faster,
Yeah.
and there's even the potential for more testing locations.
And Yakub actually mentions that a lot of countries have already started this transition.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it started the beginning of the year, January 1st.
So it's already happening.
It's already happening, and Pakistan's joining in on this in March 2025.
So yeah, big changes are definitely on the horizon.
They are.
I imagine some people who are used to taking the paper test might be feeling a little anxious about this shift.
Yeah, I mean, change can be unsettling.
For sure. But Yakub actually argues that this move to a computer-based format is good news, especially for those taking the academic IELTS.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, I guess a lot of the fear of change comes from just not knowing what to expect.
Absolutely. So what does Yakub say about the benefits?
Well, he breaks down the impact on each section of the IELTS, starting with the listening section,
Okay.
which he claims actually becomes easier for most people.
Really? Easier. That's surprising.
Yeah, he even uses his own son as an example, who took the IELTS twice, once on paper and once on a computer,
Okay.
and found the computer-based listening section to be much smoother.
Well, that's encouraging. Personal experience can be really valuable in these situations.
Exactly, and Yakub's son mentioned a few things that made it easier.
Like what?
Well, for one thing, you can right-click to highlight or underline text, which can be super helpful when you're trying to focus on key information.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like having a digital highlighter.
Exactly, and then you have the cursor, which makes it much easier to keep track of which question you're on.
Oh, yeah, I can see how that would be helpful.
Yeah, you're not constantly looking up and down, trying to find your place.
And you still get paper to make notes if that's your style, so you
Yeah.
can transfer your answers later. Right?
Yeah, so you don't lose that option of jotting things down
Like,
if that's how you prefer to work.
okay, so it sounds like they've added some features that really streamline the listening process.
Exactly.
What about the actual answering of the questions, though? Like, how does that work?
So Yakub explains that parts 1 and 4 of the listening section are mostly one-word answers.
Okay.
So there's very little typing involved.
Okay, so not too demanding on your typing skills.
Not at all.
That's good. And then for parts 2 and 3, you're mainly clicking or using drag and drop?
Interesting. So it's a lot more interactive than the paper-based format.
Yeah, it definitely is.
I can see how that would be less stressful than trying to scribble down everything you hear. Right. You can focus more on comprehending the audio and strategically selecting the right answers.
Makes sense. And for anyone who's feeling a bit unsure about this new format,
Yeah.
Jakob recommends checking out the British Council's familiarization test.
Oh, yeah, that's a great resource.
Yeah, just to get comfortable with that computer-based environment.
Definitely.
So we've talked about listening. What about reading?
Oh, the reading section. Well, I don't know about you, but I remember the absolute frustration of flipping back and forth between the passage and the questions in the paper-based test.
Oh, yeah, all that page turning. It was a real time waster.
And it totally disrupts your focus.
Absolutely.
Well, guess what? That's gone in the computer-based format.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you get a side-by-side display of the passage and the questions.
So everything's right there in front of you.
Everything's right there,
That's fantastic.
making navigation so much easier.
So it streamlines the whole process.
It really does.
Does this new format, change how you answer the questions, though?
Well, for tasks like sentence completion, you can actually copy and paste words from the passage.
Oh, wow. That's a real time saver.
It is a time saver. It really lets you focus on comprehension and analysis rather than worrying about spelling errors.
But you still need to know how to spell, right? Like there's no spell check built into the system.
Right. There's no spelling or grammar checks, so your language skills still matter.
That's good to know. They're not letting you off the hook completely.
No shortcuts.
So what are the different ways that you actually answer the questions in the reading section?
So you'll have a variety of answer formats.
Okay.
True, false, not given questions are pretty straightforward. You just click on the correct option.
Right.
Multiple choice involves selecting the best answer from a list.
Okay.
And for headings, you'll use drag and drop to match them to the appropriate sections of the passage.
So pretty intuitive.
Yeah.
Especially for anyone who's used to interacting with computers.
Yeah, and again, no need to transfer your answers to a separate sheet.
Everything's electronic.
Everything's electronic, saving you even more time to focus on actually reading and understanding those passages.
Okay, so listening and reading sound pretty promising so far. But what about writing? Does typing really make that much of a difference?
According to Yakub, it's a game changer.
Really?
Yeah, one of the biggest drawbacks of the paper-based writing section was that your handwriting could actually affect your score.
Oh, I've heard some horror stories about that.
Yeah, it's not fair if an examiner can't read your writing.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter how good your ideas are.
So typing eliminates that problem.
Typing completely eliminates that problem, ensuring that your answers are clear, legible, and easy for the examiners to assess.
Less stressful for the test taker, too, I imagine.
Absolutely. And Yakub also points out that typing makes it much easier to edit and revise your work.
Makes sense. You could delete, insert, rearrange. It's much more fluid.
Exactly.
Is there anything else that stands out about the computer-based writing section?
Well, Yakub highlights the word counter as a really helpful tool. It's right there on the screen reminding you to stay within the word limit.
Keeping you on track.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is crucial for avoiding penalties.
It's interesting how they've integrated these helpful tools into the digital format.
Yeah, it's not just about replacing pen and paper.
It's about actually creating a more supportive and user-friendly experience.
And he even reassures listeners that even if they're not speed typists,
Right.
the benefits of the computer-based format far outweigh any concerns.
That's good to hear. It sounds like they've really thought about how to make this transition as smooth as possible.
All right, so we've covered listening, reading, and writing.
What about speaking? Does that change too?
The speaking section is going to stay face-to-face with a human examiner.
Okay, so that part remains the same.
It makes sense to me. I mean, speaking is about more than just pronunciation and grammar.
Yeah, it's about being able to have a natural conversation,
Yeah.
which is hard to assess through a computer.
Exactly. It's about maintaining that human element.
Like-
So to recap, by 2025, the listening, reading, and writing sections of the IELTS will be completely computer-based. Only
Yeah.
the speaking section will stay face-to-face.
It's a huge shift.
It is a huge shift.
But it seems like it's in line with other major English proficiency tests, like TOEFL and PT.
Right, they're already fully digital.
Yeah.
And, Jakub seems pretty excited about this future for the IELTS. He really emphasizes the convenience and speed of the computer-based format.
Especially getting your results within 24 hours.
Exactly. He even called it a blessing for academic IELTS candidates.
That's a strong statement.
It is, and I think it's worth exploring a bit further what makes him so enthusiastic about this, and what do these quicker results actually mean for the average test taker?
Yeah, especially those students or those who are looking to immigrate.
Absolutely. So that's a fantastic question and a perfect segue into the next part of our deep dive.
Sound good.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more insights into the future of the IELTS.
So we're back talking about the IELTS.
And how these changes to the IELTS, this fully computer-based format, might even change the types of skills that they look for in the future?
Right.
I mean, getting results in 24 hours, that's huge.
It is, yeah, it really is, especially for some test takers more than others.
Yeah.
Like, think about students applying to universities. They have these strict deadlines.
Right. Yeah. They could miss out on an opportunity if they have to wait weeks for their results.
Exactly.
And or if you're someone who's immigrating for work or family.
Those quicker results can really speed up the whole process.
It's not just convenience. It's about opportunities, right?
Yeah, it really is.
Opening doors faster.
It's like the IELTS is acknowledging that the world moves pretty fast these days.
Yeah.
Decisions need to be made quickly.
And having those results right away.
Can be a real advantage.
Absolutely.
But it's not just about the speed, though, right?
Right.
We were talking about how this shift to digital
Yeah.
might even change how we think about what English proficiency actually means.
That's what I'm really interested in.
Yeah, because on one hand,
Yeah.
you have that traditional focus on academic language,
Right.
like essay writing presentations.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, you have this explosion of digital communication.
Yeah.
Like, how do you measure proficiency
Yeah.
when you're talking about emails, online forums?
Right. It's a whole different world.
It is.
So could we see the IELTS changing
Possibly.
to include tasks that are more relevant to how we use English in these digital spaces?
I think it's very possible. I mean, think about the skills that are in high demand these days.
Like what?
Well, it's not just about writing a perfect essay anymore.
Right.
It's about communicating effectively online, being able to quickly figure out if a source is credible or not,
Evaluating sources. Yeah.
analyzing data that's presented visually,
Visual literacy.
collaborating with people using different online tools.
So the definition of proficiency is expanding.
I think it is. Yeah, it's
Okay.
moving beyond just that traditional academic realm.
And this is something the IELTS could actually really lead on.
Yeah, I think they're in a great position to do that.
They have a global reputation.
Exactly.
And they're already embracing technology with this move to computer-based testing.
So they're kind of ahead of the curve in a lot of ways.
Okay, so this is fascinating, but for our listener, what does this mean for someone who's prepping for the IELTS right now?
Right.
Should they be ditching their grammar books
Hold on.
and enrolling in like a coding boot camp?
No, I don't think so. Not yet, anyway.
Okay.
Those fundamental English skills,
Yeah,
they're always going to be important.
right. So vocabulary, grammar,
Clear writing,
confident speaking.
those are still the cornerstones
Yeah.
of good communication, whether it's on paper or online.
Okay, so those classic study strategies
Yeah.
like, practicing essays, doing mock speaking tests, learning new vocabulary words,
Yeah.
that's all still valuable.
It is. It absolutely is.
Okay.
But I think it's smart to be aware of these broader trends as well. Think about how you're using English right now in a digital context.
Right.
Do you participate in online discussions?
Yeah,
Read news articles from various sources, collaborate on projects online.
I see what you're saying.
It's not about replacing those core skills,
Yeah.
but supplementing them with digital literacy as well.
So start incorporating those digital activities
Yes,
into your English practice.
Write blog posts, engage in online discussions.
Analyze data visualization.
Exactly, that kind of stuff.
Future-proofing your English.
Yeah, you're not just learning for the test.
Right.
You're learning for life in a digital age.
That's a great way to put it.
It's about being adaptable, giving yourself the tools you need
To thrive.
to thrive in a world that's just becoming more and more reliant on all this digital interaction.
Okay, so this has been great, this really big picture overview
Yeah.
of the IELTS, but let's zoom back in
Right.
on some of this practical advice that Asad Yaqub offers in his video.
Yeah, let's get into the nitty-gritty.
We've talked about the changes.
What about actually taking the test in this new format?
Yeah, what's it going to feel like to actually sit down at that computer screen?
Exactly.
So, starting with listening, what kind of practical advice does Yaqub give?
Well, he really emphasizes those added features we were talking about.
Right.
Like the highlighting and the underlining as you're listening.
It's like bringing your highlighter with you.
It is. It's like your own personal highlighting toolkit.
You can actively engage with the audio, focus on the important details,
Yeah.
and really improve your comprehension.
And you can still use pen and paper for notes if you want to.
Yeah, if that's your style.
So they're not restricting you.
They're not saying, you had to do it this way.
Exactly. More options and flexibility.
And another thing Yaqub mentions is how useful the cursor is.
Oh, yeah. That little thing can make a big difference.
It might seem like a small detail,
Yeah.
but being able to easily keep track of where you are in the list of questions,
Yeah, so you don't lose your spot.
especially when you're trying to process all this complex information.
Would really reduce stress,
Absolutely.
prevent errors.
Yeah.
He also gives a helpful breakdown of how the answers work for each part.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Can you remind us what those are?
So parts 1 and 4, which are mostly those one-word answers, they require very little typing.
Good news for those of us who aren't the fastest typists.
Yeah, me included.
Sounds like they've really considered people's different typing skills.
Yeah.
It's not about how fast you can type.
No, it's about comprehension.
And then parts 2 and 3,
Yeah,
it's mostly clicking or drag and drop.
right. Which can be really intuitive, especially for those who are comfortable with computers.
It's using those familiar digital actions to make
Yeah.
it feel more natural.
And of course, no more transferring your answers.
To a separate answer sheet.
Everything's electronic.
Everything's electronic.
Which saves time and, reduces that risk of making careless mistake.
Okay, so that's listening.
Yeah.
What about reading? Any practical tips for that section?
Well, as we discussed earlier, that side-by-side display of the passage and the questions.
Yeah. Game changer.
It's huge.
No more flipping back and forth.
No more flip.
Makes it so much smoother.
It makes everything so much easier. You can easily refer back to the text without losing your place.
And for some tasks, like sentence completion,
Yeah.
you can copy and paste words straight from the passage.
Straight from the passage.
Saves you time,
Yeah.
eliminates those potential spelling errors.
But he does say there are no spelling or grammar checks.
Oh, right.
So you still need to be careful
Yeah.
about choosing the right words.
Right. Using them correctly.
Using them in the right context.
It's interesting that they've kept that part of the language assessment.
It makes sense.
Even with all the technology.
Yeah.
Technology can help, but
It can't replace.
it can't replace those basic language skills.
Absolutely.
Speaking of those foundations, let's move on to the writing section. What stood out to you from Jakub's advice about tackling this section on the computer?
Well, as we discussed earlier, one of the biggest advantages is that your handwriting is no longer a factor.
Right.
It's a level playing field
Yes.
for everyone, ensuring that your score reflects your writing abilities,
And not your penmanship.
not your penmanship.
It's about fairness
It's about fairness, absolutely.
and accessibility.
And with typing, you have the added benefit of being able to edit and revise your work easily.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
You can delete, insert, rearrange. It's a much more fluid writing process.
For sure. Especially for people who like to experiment with different sentence structures or phrasings.
And the built-in word counter.
Yeah.
It's a lifesaver.
It keeps you on track
Keeps you on track,
and helps you avoid going over the word limit.
which is crucial, yeah.
It's like having a little virtual writing assistant
I like that. Virtual writing assistant.
right there on the screen, guiding you through the process.
Jakub even reassures listeners that even if they're not super fast typists,
The benefits outweigh any concerns.
it's about creating that more inclusive and supportive environment.
Absolutely. And as we discussed.
It's not just about making the test easier, it's about making it a better way to assess writing skills.
Exactly.
Before we move on to speaking,
Yeah.
is there anything else from Jakub's video that you think is worth highlighting?
You know, one thing that really struck me was his comment about the overall testing experience.
Oh, yeah.
He actually uses the word messes
Messes.
to describe the paper-based test centers,
Well,
hundreds of
okay.
candidates all crammed into this big auditorium.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
It sounds chaotic.
All that wrestling paper, people coughing, it's distracting.
And he contrasts that with
Yeah.
the more controlled and quiet setting of a computer lab,
Right.
where each test taker has their own little workstation,
Yeah, much calmer.
much calmer.
More individualized.
And being able to focus without all those distractions can make a huge difference.
Especially for a test as demanding as the IELTS. I think it could even reduce anxiety
Oh, for sure.
and just lead to a more positive experience.
Absolutely. It's about creating an environment where people can really do their best.
And that's so important as we move towards this fully computer-based IELTS.
Okay, so we've talked about listening, reading, writing,
All on the computer.
all on the computer now.
But the speaking section will stay face-to-face
Right.
with a human examiner.
Why do you think they've kept that part the same?
I think it goes back to the core of what the speaking section is trying to assess.
Which is?
It's not just pronunciation and grammar. It's about being able to engage in a conversation, respond to prompts spontaneously, express yourself clearly.
Yeah, those are skills that are best evaluated by a person.
Absolutely.
Technology can enhance a lot of things.
It can.
But some skills, especially those related to speaking,
Yeah.
they just need that human interaction
It's about finding the right balance.
between the tech and the human expertise.
I like that, the right balance.
Right, because technology can streamline things, make things more efficient,
Yeah.
but it can't replace the nuances of human communication.
For human judgment.
And I think that's why they've kept speaking face to face.
It makes sense, the speaking section. It's not about just reciting memorized answers.
Right.
It's about showing that you can communicate effectively in a real-world setting.
Exactly.
And it's kind of a reassuring message for test takers.
It is.
Even though the IELTS is changing,
Yeah.
embracing technology,
Yeah.
it's not forgetting the importance of human connection.
Or communication.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, it seems like the future of the IELTS is really a blend of tradition and innovation.
It is. It's about using technology to make things better, more efficient, more accessible.
But still holding on to those
Yeah,
essential elements of human interaction and assessment.
exactly.
And as a test taker, it's about embracing these changes,
Yeah.
seeing them as opportunities
To show off your skills.
to prepare for a world where, technology and communication are just inseparable.
Absolutely.
But let's not forget those human elements, the examiners, the test takers, that shared experience of,
Yeah.
trying to achieve proficiency in this language
Right.
that connects us across cultures and continents.
That's a really good point. It's a reminder that even in this digital world,
Yeah,
human connection is still at the heart of language learning
at the heart of it all.
and assessment. We'll be back after a short break to finish up our deep dive into the future of the IELTS. All right, we're back, wrapping up our deep dive into the future of the IELTS.
It's been pretty fascinating, hasn't it?
Yeah,
We
definitely.
started out with all these anxieties about what's changing,
Yeah, the unknown.
but I think we ended up with a much deeper understanding
Absolutely.
of what these changes actually mean for
Yeah.
the average test taker.
Yeah, I think one thing that really stood out to me was
What's that?
just how much emphasis was placed on that human element.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It would have been so easy to just get bogged down in all the technical
The
stuff.
clicks and the drag and drops.
Exactly.
But what I really appreciate about Asad Yaqub's perspectives
Yeah.
is that he never loses sight of the people.
The people behind the screen.
The people behind the screens.
Yeah.
He really cares about making sure that this move to a computer-based format
Yeah.
doesn't create a bunch of new barriers
Right.
or anxieties for test takers.
And he seems to think that for a lot of people, it'll actually make the experience better, smoother, more equitable.
Yeah, I got that sense too.
And that focus on equity, I think that's so important.
It is. Yeah.
Because by getting rid of things like handwriting legibility as a factor,
Yeah.
it means that people are really being assessed on their language skills.
It levels the playing field.
It does.
It makes things fairer.
Absolutely. And it makes it more inclusive, too.
And we can't forget about just the pure convenience of it all.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine finishing your IELTS exam
Yeah.
and then getting your results in 24 hours. It's a game changer.
Especially for students.
Oh, yeah.
Up against those university deadlines.
Right.
Or people who are, going through immigration processes.
It's not just about convenience, though, is it?
What do you mean?
I mean, those faster results, they also raise some questions.
Like what?
Well, like, how might that affect how people make decisions?
Oh, interesting.
Will people feel pressure to make those decisions faster?
That's a great point.
It's something to think about.
It is, yeah.
Maybe it means that people need more guidance
More support?
to help them make those decisions carefully, even when they're under time pressure.
That's where things like, pre-test counseling
Exactly.
and post-test advising become even more important.
Yeah, it's not just about giving someone a score.
It's about helping them understand what that score means
All right.
and how they can use it
To achieve their goals.
to get where they want to go.
Yeah, yeah.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive,
What's the one key message you want our listener to take away today?
don't be afraid of the change.
Embrace the change.
Embrace it. See it as an opportunity
Yeah.
to improve your skills, to get better at using English in a digital world.
To prepare for a world where, technology and communication, they're intertwined.
They really are.
And remember, even with all this technology,
Yeah.
the fundamentals, those core English skills,
Those are still so important.
they still matter.
They do. Vocabulary, grammar,
Right,
confident
absolutely.
speaking,
Those are the building blocks.
that's are the foundation.
No matter what.
No matter what the test looks like, no matter what path you choose in life.
This has been a really great deep dive.
It has, yes.
But it's just the beginning
Right.
of your
So,
IELTS journey, right?
There's so many resources out there to help you prepare.
Practice tests, online courses.
Tutoring and that British Council familiarization test is a great place to start.
Yeah, explore all the options, find what works best for you.
And dive in.
We believe in you, listener.
We do. The future of the IELTS is bright.
And so is yours.
Keep learning, keep growing
And keep diving deep.
into that world of knowledge.
And until next time, keep exploring.